Right, it's time for us to see the headlines across Nigerian newspapers this morning. Let's begin with the Daily Times. Daily Times newspaper is talking about the ministerial list, and it says, State APC chieftains question Tinubu, governors intensify lobby. Okay, on the ministerial list, State APC chieftains question Tinubu's governors intensify lobby. That's what you see on the front page of the Daily Times. And then let's go to the Guardian newspaper. Guardian says it's also talking about the ministerial screening, which should commence today, or should take place today. Economy, rule of law, foreign policy, security, top agenda for nominees. Economy, rule of law, foreign policy, security, top agenda for nominees. And key expectations from Tinubu's government and cabinet. You will see a breakdown of all of that on the front page of the Guardian. Of course, that's why we say the economy, rule of law, foreign policy, security are some of the top agenda for ministerial screening of nominees. This Nigeria is next and is talking about anti-graft. Tinubu probes CBN, other related bodies, appoints ex-Financial Reporting Council boss Obaze as a special investigator to investigate illegally held government wealth in hands of private public persons, to report directly to President weekly. Okay, you see all this on the front page of this Nigeria. From there, let's go to Nigeria News Direct. No going back on August 2nd, nationwide protests. Okay, no going back on August 2, nationwide protest. Labour is insisting they must and they will go on strike from August the 2nd. Issues advisory to Nigerians in preparation, right? No court order stopping us from embarking on peaceful protest, NLC tells the federal government. And NECA predicts increase in unemployment, poverty if strike proceeds. And the Economist backs federal government on distribution of cash palliatives. Okay, all that you see on the front page of News Direct. Okay, Daily Sun is next. NLC adamant on issues on mass action strike. NLC adamant on mass action and strike. It says no going back on August the 2nd date. Dispatches officials to zones for final mobilization. And Kalu others plead for suspension of action. Okay, all this you see on the front page of Daily Sun. From there, let's go to Abuja Inquirer. And Abuja Inquirer is focusing on insecurity. FCT states to engage vigilante for polio vaccination. Right? FCT and states to engage vigilante for polio vaccination. That's what you see on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer. Kemi.
Right, Daily Trust is next, and the lead story is on the Niger development. Of course, on Friday we told you about the coup that occurred there. The president is still said to be in detention by the presidential guards who were initially appointed to protect him and his family. Well, the lead story on the Daily Trust is saying coupists seek Russia's help as ECOWAS molds military action, because we'll talk more about the development in the Niger Republic, and that's the big story also on Blueprint. Blueprint says, ECOWAS to Niger coupists, reinstate Bazoum in 7 days or face wrath, rolls out sanctions against mutineers. Protesters, on the other hand, say it's time to talk about our lives and freedom. And then there is a rejoinder, so to speak, by the military leaders said to have instigated that coup. They say, stay off, we are prepared to defend our country. That's all on the Blueprint. Let's check out Business AM now. Nigeria Railways highly vulnerable as debt service revenue in mismatch. 218.7 billion naira debt service versus 20.8 billion naira revenue. And the concession market reflective tickets suggested, of course, Business AM there, spotlighting the current state of the Nigeria Railways service. Leadership is next. Moribund companies dot north amid insecurity and infrastructure decay. Moribund companies dot north amid insecurity and infrastructure decay. Over now to Business Day. Economist Intelligence Unit, the EIU, sees Naira crossing to 1,000 against the dollar on rising inflation. That's a projection there by the EIU that the Naira would hit 1,000 to the dollar in the face of rising inflation. And there is a related headline on the Daily Independent, as we see next, with experts saying there's little CBN can do to tame supply-induced inflation, with the Economist Intelligence Unit seeing CBN-controlled exchange rate coming back soon. That's all on the Daily Independent. Let's check out the Punch. Now, groups, economists tell Tinubu's special investigator, Jim Obaze, to uncover CBN mess as well as the controversies in the state oil firm, that's the NNPCL, as well as other government business entities. Jim Obaze there was appointed over the weekend by the president as a special investigator on the CBN, NNPCL, and other government entities. Of course, that's also an interesting read there. Finally is the Nature News, and it says, countdown to 2025. Federal government declares 104 local government areas open defecation free. But then again, 87% local governments across the nation are still uncertified. And that's an abysmal number there. Target date remains shaky. Federal government expands sanitation drive nationwide, all ahead of the projected 2025, which is the end open defecation target in Nigeria. Mike.
Okay. All right. It's good to see what the headlines are across Nigeria. Let's look at this story. The NLC story, Daily Sun, it says NLC is adamant on mass action and strike. You have seen a lot of individuals and institutions, telling NLC to reconsider the issue or the idea of a mass action. On the other hand, NLC would not listen to any of those. In fact, there's a report that they have mobilized, some of their officials into different zones for as a way of keeping everybody up to speed with the need to go on the strike. Now, some of the arguments are that Nigeria is already going through a lot of challenge right now. Some hard decisions that the government said they were going to take to ensure that things change from what it used to be, bring in more revenue for government, close up leakages, ensure that things are more efficient, so that there's better productivity for Nigerians and all of that. Hard decisions to be taken so that things can work. But certainly, these are the things that NLC has also stood for over the years as to we need the system to work better. But it seems there is no agreement, or it seems there is the government and Labour are not on the same page as to the impact of what government has started doing already on Nigerians. It's quite ironical because when the issue of subsidy removal was being campaigned about or campaigned on by all presidential candidates, NLC was part of it. Yeah, of course, these things have to go. The only thing is, okay, there has to be palliatives. But government has set up a committee to look into or design what the palliatives should be. NLC is part of that committee. But it's just quite, concerning that it seems NLC and the government are not understanding each other from the same standpoint as far as this is concerned.
Especially when you look at how it all started, how the Tinubu administration, took off. Yes, it was a rather some would say it was a big surprise, you know, the way he announced the end of the fuel subsidy regime in his inauguration speech. And some said he was more or less just taking it up from his campaign promises, which you have also said, you know, was on all fours. We're on all fours with, you know, major candidates. And even right now, environmentalists are said to be happy with the way things are now. We are having less, you know, traffic gridlocks as a result of, you know, the situation we have, the development in Nigeria now. The people are saying, okay, there's cleaner air now, you know, for everyone. But my point is, you know, at the beginning, there were engagements between the labor groups and the presidency. There were meetings held, and there were promises that, you know, interventions will be made by the federal government to ease the brunt of the removal of the fuel subsidy on Nigerians. And according to Labour, now the meeting of Friday didn't hold. They say the federal government didn't, you know, heed and they were the ones that everybody agreed that they should all come back, reconvene on Friday. But then Labour said it was only their side that was forthcoming. And now we hear there's another meeting today. And we hope there is progress. But of course, Labour has, you know, articulated its points, talking about or demanding a total reversal of what it calls anti-people, you know, policies, especially the issue of the fuel subsidy removal. And we don't know what's going to happen now. But what we know is that all the subsidiary groups, the affiliated unions, are saying they are ready for the start of the nationwide strike and protest on Wednesdays. The schools, you know, higher institutions, banks, everywhere that, you know, public service workers, you know, are scattered around. They say, and especially power, at a point they were saying it's not yet certain if, you know, the power sector workers would also join in the strike. But from what we have also heard over the weekend, they say that they are also revved up, you know, to join in the nationwide strike. And even though it's a familiar terrain for many Nigerians, this is not the first time that there will be a threat to go on strike. But of course, we know that perhaps up to the last moment, it's called off, you know, after hours-long engagements with and among both sides. So we hope that something positive, you know, can be reached between now and Wednesday. And we hope that all sides come to the table, even though there is talk about one side possibly infringing or possibly disobeying a court order against them going on strike. And of course, Labour is also saying they are not in any wrong there, and that there is no court order that they have to obey. But it still remains to be seen. If they have the meeting today, we hope that the meeting happens today and that all sides make progress and, you know, Nigerians can be more optimistic.
Yeah, the point there is there are lots of things. I think Nigerians have been used to certain things for so many decades that sometimes we don't know that what we have been enjoying all the while, if you had to put the word enjoying in quotes there, is part of what the burden that government has been trying to shoulder all the while. For instance, the cost of data for calls and all of that in Nigeria seem to be one of the cheapest around. You know, if you check the cost of all of these things across even other African countries, you know that Nigeria still has one of the cheapest data. Of course, the cost also of ensuring, because if you see what telecom companies invest into keeping it up there is also a whole lot. But if you also check the cost of fuel, in Nigeria seems to be one of the cheapest around. Nigeria is not the only oil-producing country, even in Africa or around the world. The cost of electricity tariff around Nigeria, all of these things are there. But we have enjoyed it like this for so many decades. So sometimes the reality of it, Nigerians are not ready to look into all of that now. But there has to be that communication between government, labor, the people, so that everyone understands at what point should we support government to make sacrifices for these things to work. Right. In the month of July, there was the report of government revenue shooting up to one of the highest levels in so many years, where government was talking of sharing almost about 1.9 trillion naira just for the month of July. And it really hasn't been like that. You know, I can't remember when, even at the peak of the oil boom and all of that, we didn't have all of that, as the case may be. But we have that now. And it's courtesy of the removal of fuel subsidy, which means that there'll be more money for states to share and to be able to carry out palliatives for people at the state level and so on and so forth. There is also the issue of the rejigging and reorganizing the social register, so that it can be more encompassing, and then trying to create a data that can be relied upon and so on. So I think in the coming days, government on one hand needs to be able to communicate clearer and also get expedite action on the palliatives that they need Nigerians to benefit from. Because as it is, of course, we know everything is hard right now, but these are the realities. So we have to leave it here now anyway, and we move on to discussing some